Orange Cassidy, the most controversial wrestler on the AEW roster, and we talk about him next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. So Ralph, I've noticed something recently on our analytics on the Squared Circle Psychobabble, and that is a lot of people are talking about one Orange Cassidy. Mm-hmm. And there was a video that we did a couple weeks ago. If you're new to the channel, haven't seen that video yet, the eyes above my head, I'll put the link in the description. We were talking about Jim Cornette's reaction to Orange Cassidy and basically how he feels that he was a joke to the wrestling business, exposing the business, whatever. And, you know, we commented on it, and some things we agreed on, some things we disagree on, and brought up a lot of things in that video, in that episode. A lot of comments on there. Some praise him, some say that he is an insult to the business.
Correct.
But it's funny, since when he was at Double or Nothing, he got a huge reaction. At All Out, he got a really big reaction, possibly the big pop of the night. And Chris Jericho talked about this on his Talk is Jericho podcast, where he talked about All Out. And he had an interesting quote about this. He said, Orange Cassidy, very controversial. I know a lot of people hate him. I love him. Anytime you could do something different in the wrestling world and get a reaction, that's what wrestling's all about.
Right.
I really actually would like to work with this guy and kick his shins with the shades on and just doesn't care. Just imagine when he opens up and flips and beats the crap out of someone when he shows some real, genuine emotion. This guy knows what he's doing. You have to be a good worker to get that sort of stuff over. So you're talking about possibly the most talked about wrestler in AEW, maybe even the wrestling industry right now in Chris Jericho, and the most controversial wrestler in AEW in Orange Cassidy. Why is Orange Cassidy so polarizing when we've had comedy wrestlers in the past?
Yeah.
And even today with the guys like R-Truth, Toru Yano.
Sure. Yeah. I think he's most polarizing because of where the wrestling industry is right now. If you look at the wrestling industry over the past couple of years, and certainly right now, no one can doubt there's certainly been a change, whether it's been the mindset from the wrestlers themselves and the way that they work. The fans are certainly much smarter. I mean, you can certainly see shades of that on Double or Nothing, because a character like, not Double or Nothing, All Out. When you look at a character like Orange Cassidy, when the lights came on and he was in the ring, the fans went nuts for him. Now, conversely, on the other side of that, you had a guy in Arn Anderson who came out to the ring, somebody who you would assume wouldn't necessarily fit that demographic of, you know, the traditional wrestler that people would be rooting for today, I guess you could say.
Right.
He's somebody that goes back, you know, wrestling back with the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, everybody knows the history with that. And my main point is this. There's smarter fans now, you know, whether it's the internet, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media. Very few secrets remain a secret ananymore. It's very hard to get one over on the fans nowadays. Not only that, but things like the WWE Network, New Japan Pro World, all of those things combined with social media, everything is so accessible. So you have smarter fans. So I think right now where the industry is you have the old school mentality, somebody like a Jim Cornette, somebody who wants wrestling to feel like this sacred thing. And now you have these newer fans who aren't so much interested in having it feel more like a sporting event, like a stage fight. They want to see more of a performance, and you can see that in the work. It's much faster. Guys don't necessarily sell as much, and that upsets the people of the old school mindset. So I think that's why Orange Cassidy is so polarizing, because I think that the newer generation of fan is willing to accept him for what he is and say, look, it's wrestling. We get it. It's scripted. It's whatever. We don't care that he's going to go out there and do the play kicking and all of that stuff. He can still work at the end of the day. And then you have the old school mentality, the guys like Jim Cornette, older fans, and they're like, nope, you know what? That's exposing the business. I'm just not into it.
Right.
So I think that's why he's so polarizing, because right now we are really in just a transitional phase of the wrestling industry.
Right. I want to put a poll up on our on this video, and I'll put it on the eye above my head right now. Do you love Orange Cassidy or do you hate Orange Cassidy with what you've seen so far? Vote now. Tell us why in the comments. Now, in that video that we had previously, I was really ripping on Orange Cassidy just because with the play kicks and the light tap chops and all that stuff, I thought it was insulting and making it seem like wrestling was too easy. Now, we have the likes of R-Truth and Toro Yano and Drake Maverick and, countless amount of comedy wrestlers and gimmicks that have, been in and out of wrestling for time and time again. And,
right.
Reading the comments in that past video, people would say, well, Orange Cassidy's a gimmick, just like The Undertaker's a gimmick. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, a dead man, it shouldn't be really wrestling. He's dead. And you have The Undertaker, who had a gimmick for over 30 years, where he is a zombie mortician, basically. And he was able to change his character and develop it over time. And I think that's also part of the questions that are yet to be answered with Orange Cassidy is, where does it go from here? Like, it's one thing to see him at an independent show and you see him in one match and you're like, oh, that was funny. But where does it go from here? How do you develop the character of Orange Cassidy?
Yep. So 2 big words that you said there, development and character. I think that the Orange Cassidy character in itself is so unique and so different than anything anybody else is doing that it can be successful, okay? It's going to be very hard for a casual or a lapsed fan, which we know AEW right now is trying to target lapsed fans from the Attitude Era because there were 7 million people watching wrestling and there's roughly 2 million, I guess, right now that watch WWE, but we've gone through all of that before. We know the numbers. But maybe they'll come back and maybe they'll watch. Even if it's a small percentage, when you're talking millions, that's a big success for AEW. Now, the character itself is different, which means one thing somebody said in the comments section that I totally disagree with, and if this is anybody, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you, but they said people don't care about the character. The thing that people get interested in is their ability to put on good matches, something like that.
Right.
And I totally disagree with that. When you look at the big stars, not just like a guy, but like the guy, the person that can transition into different markets and be successful at multiple things, those are larger than life characters.
Right.
Your Steve Austins, your Rocks, your Hogans, Cena's. I mean, and Cena is probably the perfect example of somebody who's so polarizing but works. Now, all of that said, there's a big difference from being over with your crowd, like the in crowd, and being over like, oh my God, this guy's larger than life. The Yes movement was right on the cusp of being like larger than life because that transitioned into sports. It was all over the place. The Rock, obviously, seeing what he's gone on to do in Hollywood. When you look at Steve Austin to this day, obviously his show on USA drawing 1 million views. That's huge in terms of just like a TV show where he's going out there and relying on, past people to follow him over to his TV show and all of that stuff. So those are larger than life characters who may not have been the best technical professional wrestlers. Right. There's a reason a guy like Cesaro, who is about as good as it gets in the ring, but just doesn't have that it factor that can get, at least not yet. Maybe he'll get it somewhere down the line. Sometimes it just happens like that. But right now, he just doesn't have it.
Right.
So there's a difference between 10,000 fans in arena going crazy for Orange Cassidy and like, oh my God, this is like the next big thing in professional wrestling. Now, the other thing you said was just how he's able to redefine the character itself and like changes he can make along the way to adapt to like, make this work. The play kicks to me is the thing that turns me off. I like the character. I understand the character. Everybody, when I was kind of ripping on him, they were like, go watch his matches. I've watched every match you could possibly find on YouTube of Orange Cassidy just to get the best understanding I possibly could because I didn't want to crap on the guy without giving him his due diligence. So yes, he can work. Yes, he can wrestle. I understand all of that. The character itself is different. It's good. It works with the fans that they have there now. But the play kicks to me, if this is a simulated fight, if this is supposed to be, while it's scripted, you're supposed to be convincing people that this is a fight that you're in. Right. And you're trying to do bodily harm or damage to the other person standing across from you. if I'm going like this to somebody and barely touching them, while the fans may be eating that up at like a local VFW, how does the person who's watching this take it seriously?
Right.
And not only that, but if it's a real fight and somebody walks up to you and does that to you, don't you just like punch them in the face? Or like, it's a joke. Well, like, but you can make it so he can do certain tweaks. Like if and he's a pretty athletic guy where he can, maneuver around moves that people are doing and try and make it where he's like avoiding conflict and
he kind of does that.
He does.
It depends on the match that he's in and the person that he's in the ring with. Now, a lot of people in the comments that would recommend a certain match, the match that usually comes up is his match with David Starr.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is where the Orange Cassidy character comes at its best, because David Starr, his character is a serious wrestler and wants to be the best at what he does.
Yeah.
Orange Cassidy's character is, I want to do as limited stuff as humanly possible just to get, basically he's a millennial.
He's a sloth.
He's a sloth. He's a millennial. He just wants to do the bare minimum to get through life. And when he's doing the play kicks and the chops and whatever, David Starr's like, what is this? This is a joke, right? And he beats the crap out of him. And then finally, Orange Cassidy kicks into gear and actually has a serious match. And I believe he actually wins that match.
He does.
If I'm not mistaken. Yes, he wins that match. But then you'll see another match, and another one that people will recommend is his match with Gentleman Jervis. That there is where it's an insult to the business, because not only is Orange Cassidy playing along, you have Gentleman Jervis doing the same exact thing.
And Joey Janela and him had a match as well, which the same thing. They were both doing the play kicking and the play.
And even there was something that just recently came up on YouTube where I think this was during WrestleMania weekend, where Orange Cassidy had a match with Christopher Daniels, or the Best Friends in SCU had a match, and they were in the ring together, and Christopher Daniels was playing along with it. And I'm like, that was a turnoff, because to me, the opponent shouldn't be playing along with Orange Cassidy. They should be actually doing the opposite, because opposites attract and opposites work.
You know the moments in a match where like you have a small guy in the ring with the Undertaker. Like let's say Daniel Bryan was in the ring with Undertaker.
Right.
And Undertaker's got him in the corner. He goes for the big right hand. The wrestler ducks underneath and gives him a quick subtle kick to the leg.
Mm-hmm.
If they work it in where it makes sense, where like Orange Cassidy is in a corner and he's in a vulnerable position and he's able to avoid the big move from the bigger guy or the guy that's trying to harm him, and then he does the play kick, and it's leaving the larger guy or his opponent like puzzled, like, what the hell are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this? This is a joke. I'm okay with that.
Right.
The parts in the match that bother me the most are when he's literally standing face to face with somebody and the guy's just allowing him to do this. Like, I get it. It's wrestling. It's scripted. We're supposed to have an open mind to it, but that to me is just, it's too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
I like the character. I think the character can work. I think he'll be insanely successful in AEW if he's booked right and used right, and they make some adjustments to his in-ring work as far as that stuff is concerned. But me personally, and I know other people are in the same boat, that's probably the thing that bothers them the most about Orange. Do you agree? I mean, is that the thing that turns you off most?
I think what turns me off most is not necessarily the play kicks themselves. It's just more when people play along to it and play kick back and chop back, and and people are like, "Oh my God, this is so great! They're barely fighting." It's like, no, that's not wrestling. Yeah. That's a comedy act.
At the very least, he's got good momentum going into this, and he's
does.
done limited things. And this is similar to like WWE right now, where the most over thing right now, like we've talked about on the show, is The Fiend. He's had 2 matches to date. He's been mostly built through run-ins and random appearances and his video packages. So that just goes to show you, like, it's the character. It's how you portray it. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that are going to get you over. Now, on the other side, with a guy like Orange Cassidy, he's not the biggest guy in the world.
No.
AEW doesn't have the biggest guys on their roster, but they have more established guys. They have some guys that can portray more of like a badass, I guess.
Right.
Jericho would be the perfect guy to complement him.
Yep.
Now, when you look at how they've done this before, usually fans tend to resonate with a sympathetic character. Daniel Bryan was good, obviously, during the Yes Movement. You look at right now what they're doing with Chad Gable. I think that right now they're using him perfectly in the King of Ring tournament because he's playing that underdog role. I think Orange Cassidy can very much do that and portray that type of character, and people can get behind it and help build momentum.
Right.
And when you look at like going back to a classic match, everybody knows, well, not so much a classic, but maybe a classic moment that everybody would probably remember was when 1-2-3 Kid beat Razor Ramon in that upsetting fashion. Matches like that are kind of moments that will help build the character and help establish them. So I'm not saying he has to win against Chris Jericho. Would I want to see it right now for the business and for AEW? How do you not book it? I mean, yes, he's controversial and he's polarizing, but he's over. He's getting a reaction, which is more than you can say for like the Dark Order.
Right.
That's what you need to get a reaction out of people, whether it's good or bad. Cena, for as much as people shit on him, he gets a reaction. So whenever you put him in the ring with somebody, you're going to have that good atmosphere.
And the same with Roman. You know, people crap with Roman for years, and it's like you get Let's Go Roman. Roman sucks in his matches. They're not the 5-star matches that you get from Kenny Omega or Kazuchika Okada, but you're getting the fans invested. And I think that's something that is missing in today's wrestling, where the fans are just not interested because whether or not the guy's in there, there's no story behind it, or they know the match is going to be good. So, you know, they don't need to really react to it to make it even. I don't know what the reason is, but there's some disconnect with the fans.
I think it has a lot to do with fans being smarter. I mean, it's hard because with the wrestling industry, the Attitude Era exposed so much. I mean, when you look at some of the things that went on, you had the Hell in the Cell. Mm-hmm. You had Mick Foley get thrown off the top of the cell. How the hell do you top that aside from going out there and literally killing somebody in the ring? You know, so I mean, it's hard when you've pushed the envelope so far, and now you scale it back so much just because of where we are and like the social environment. If they try to do that stuff, I mean, especially in WWE because it's a public company, it's not going to fly. I mean, with social media and everything, people just aren't as accepting of those types of things. There's no way you can do that type of stuff and get away with it. And then even going back to like last week's Raw, you saw obviously Bayley's somewhat heel turn, I guess, if you want to call. So, I mean, you see Becky Lynch getting up and she's kind of positioned, getting ready for like the chair shot, and you could see it from a mile away. So as the fans become conditioned to the repeated spots over and over and become smarter because they're exposed to so much, it's hard to respond to that type of stuff, which is why Orange Cassidy being a different type of character than anything we've seen in the wrestling industry can be good. Yeah. Because if you're evoking emotion and you can get people to care or cheer or boo, you want a reaction. Like I said, if you're the Dark Order, if people are sitting on their hands, or even if you look at Shinsuke and AJ, what was supposed to be a great match, you had two faces going off against each other, and the fans weren't reacting. The crowd was essentially dead that whole match. Right. You don't want that atmosphere.
It's like the AJ Shinsuke match, not to really go off track here, but like to me, that story was written backwards, where the Shinsuke heel turn and the low blows and stuff, all that stuff could have happened before WrestleMania and booked towards WrestleMania, but instead they booked starting at WrestleMania and did everything after that. Right. It was booked really backwards. Yep. But like Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho, let's get back on track here. I think that would be a great match, especially with Jericho's character right now, where he just wants to be the center of attention and be like, he is the reason AEW exists. I think that would be such a good match from a storytelling perspective. Will it be a very technical match or, very spot heavy match? Absolutely not. But besides Jericho, I think another person that would have a very interesting match in the ring with him is Jon Moxley. And basically for the same reason, but I think having the lunatic mentality that Moxley or Dean Ambrose, whichever character you want to really put this into effect, has. Imagine Orange Cassidy doing that to Moxley and just really getting him so pissed off that he just loses it to a point where even Orange Cassidy then loses it, and then we actually get a good wrestling match out of it. Yep. That's what they need to do with Orange Cassidy. What they need to figure out in his character, what gets him to the point where he stops play kicking and actually kicks it into gear.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, because that could even be a whole storyline in itself going on for months. Like, who's going to be the guy that finally gets him to crack and flip the switch and transition from this laid-back sloth character to who pushes him to that edge? Because
Right.
everybody has it. It's just a matter of, figuring out what strings to pull until you get somebody to flip the switch.
Yeah.
So,
Is it where he, when someone knocks his glasses off, or when he finally gets fallen on his back and he does the kick up?
right.
What is it that actually gets him into gear, and actually, or is it the fact that people try ripping his hands out of his pockets? Because
Something
I've
like
seen
that.
that in his matches too, where they try to rip it out and he goes back in. Maybe he gets to a point where it's like, all right, seriously, stop, and actually
Right.
punches the guy.
And they did something similar, I think, in TNA with Abyss when he was Joseph Park. That's his name,
Yeah,
right? So,
right.
and he didn't want to go back to that Abyss character. Eventually, he got pushed to the point where he did bring the monster back. So, yeah, stuff like that
Or
can certainly
Kane,
make.
where
Yep.
from Corporate Kane to the Demon Kane. I mean, it's happened.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you get that out of Orange Cassidy? So very controversial guy, Orange Cassidy is, despite having very, very effort into his character and his in-ring talent. But let us know in the comments what you think of Orange Cassidy. Don't forget to like this video, share it all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe and hit that bell for notifications for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.